Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. I'm your host, Melvin Lars, the Nobody Asked Me Guy. Listen, you are going to be in for a treat. You have three phenomenal young ladies that are going to be here blowing your minds. Our topic tonight is talking about doing a series on moms. And everybody talks about Mother's Day. But as I said, the entire month of May, as far as I'm concerned, is Mama's Month. And then Mama's Month go throughout the year. So you have five fantastic ladies. So even though this is segment 5 of 5, you guys know you are in for a treat. Now, our topic, as you can see, is challenges of motherhood. Initially, I said pitfalls and celebrations. And then I didn't want to be negative and say pitfall. So we decided to change the word to challenges and celebrations, if that's okay. Now, tonight, guys, we have with us, as I've said, three phenomenal ladies, and I'm going to introduce each one of them individually, and then we're going to ask them to tell you more about themselves. First up, we have Miss LaTienda Davis. Miss LaTienda Davis is a detective. And she's going to tell you all about the kind of stuff that she does. And guys, listen, she also wears a crown. And she wore a crown in her past, and she will tell you what that crown was. We have Dr. L.A. Wade, who is a college professor and counselor and just do a whole plethora of things. She has a show that she's going to tell you about. And, of course, we have Miss Shannon Ford-Jefferson. Just a phenomenal sister. She's a poet. She has about 100 books. Poetry books she's already written, and she's involved with so many things. So you guys didn't tune in to hear me. You tuned in to hear these ladies. We're going to talk about some very interesting topics. Please share what you feel would be interesting as well. Topics you might want to ask, what you want to actually ask our guest. And we have some canned questions that we will ask, but no questions are barred. So with that, Dr. L.A., if you would share with our audience a little more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'm not a doctor yet, so let's just start there.
I'm tagging you. I'm speaking it into existence.
Speaking into existence. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take that. I'm not a doctor yet, but I am pursuing a PhD, and it's in regard, and I use it a lot actually when I talk about motherhood. So I'm going to use some of my theory, which is called symbolic proximity, to also speak from when I'm doing this conversation with all of you. My name is LA. I work as a registrar and sessional lecturer at the University of Toronto, which is like the Harvard North. It's a very popular and well-known institution here in Toronto, Canada. And my family, I have two beautiful young boys. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. And both boys. And so I have challenges and triumphs with that. I run a podcast, which is now just recently transferred onto a digital TV network called The Elephant Room. So we are now on mytcntv.com. We had our very first show today. So we were extremely nervous. It was, but I think the content is still good. And once we find our groove, we'll be even better. I'm an avid sports fan, and I just love everything that allows Black people to communicate with one another, to learn and grow with each other. Empathy and love is what I'm about, and I hope to share that with all of you today.
Fantastic. Listen,
thanks.
Get ready for this name. LaTienda.
Yes.
Share with us. Yes.
Oh, well, hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm LaTienda, and I'm here in Louisiana, actually the north end of Louisiana, Shreveport to be exact. What I do for a living is I am an investigator / detective with the district attorney's office for Caddo Parish. And my primary goals every day, or job description every day, is I'm responsible for screening domestic violence and sexual assault cases and working closely with the assistant district attorneys to get them ready to prosecute these cases. And so that's my new job. I spent 13 years as a deputy sheriff for the Caddo Parish. And during my time as a deputy sheriff, I was corrections, patrol, detective, and a dare officer.
Wow.
Even went as far as to be president of the Louisiana Dare Officer Association. So I had at one point close to 200 dare officers that was up under my leadership. I am too pursuing my doctorate. I'm actually focusing on an EDD, and the praying May 2020 is the walking date, the walking month that I am shooting for. And so I carry a lot of responsibilities, but the greatest responsibility is being mother to a 2-year-old daughter named Michelle Ali Davis. And her name came from a combination of Michelle Obama and Muhammad Ali. And so I had to put a historic connection to that. And so for me, a lot of my time when I'm not juggling all the different responsibilities that I have is just pouring into her life and seeing her grow, because being a mother to her was not an easy road for me. And so I'll share a little bit more of that later on, but it's a roller coaster ride. Every day is not the same as the next. So
all right,
happy to be on.
Well, we have to have. Listen, this young lady requires I call her full name, Miss Shannon Ford-Jefferson.
Yes.
You're funny, Melvin. I appreciate you. Well, let me give my, I guess, spiel. It's not as fancy or as eloquent as our future doctors in the house.
Live.
I am not pursuing my doctorate. I am not going to be a doctor. May marry a doctor, but I'm not going to be a doctor.
There you go.
I am currently managing the only certified domestic violence center in the Florida Keys, and I lead the county's human trafficking coalition. I slay dragons by day and write poetry by night, and I'm at work. My background is juvenile detention. I'm a mother to many, but bearing none. And so I'm just happy to be here. You probably will catch me in this conversation or any conversation talking about tacos or Teddy P, both the artist and my dog who's at work with me. So,
all right.
Well, listen, guys, great. I know the show has been great already, and we're just getting started. Ladies, you know, I always ask that canned question since we've been on this series and about what is a mother. Now, I know that's very mundane. I know it's very overused. However, I just like to ask that anyway. I guess just to be annoying. So, would each one of you, if you share in your own rendition, a generic definition of what your views of a mother is, what the views are?
I'll go first.
Shannon.
Look, I raised my hand like in school. Since there's 2 mothers on the platform already, I'll pay homage to the mothers. A mother is a word that encompasses so many different things, but doesn't get enough credit for all that she does. When I think of a mother, and not just someone who birthed a child, but someone who actually nurtures, encourages, disciplines, loves, heals whole their child or children that they may come in contact with, because there are people who don't actually birth children, but yet they're mothers. I think of someone who's compassionate, but also firm and consistent in their conversation and their speech. Of course, my background is more of that of Christian, biblical based, but I do think of a Proverbs 31 woman in terms of her children will rise up and call her blessed. But right. I really think of someone who is not necessarily, because I hear people say this all the time, and I think it's taboo, that a mother is selfless. I think a mother that practices self-care is paramount in her functioning to her children. When she is optimal in her energy and her aptitude and her altitude, she can determine the attitude of her climate within her home. So to me, that's look, that's Gloria Ford. But, you know, shout out to all you mothers on the platform. I
Okay. Shannon, I already said Shannon, Dr. L. I'm going to call you Dr. anyway, Dr. L.A.
I'll take it. Like I said, I'll take it. For me, when people ask me for definitions around these moral constructs like mother and father, I think about the contrasting places that those titles hold. So like Shannon talked about, you know, you have the unconditional love, the selflessness, the nurturing, you know, the protectiveness, the strength and the gentleness. And there's lots of different words that we could use to describe mothers that are all very positive. But what I find is that there's the ideal of motherhood, and then there's the reality of motherhood, where I'm like, clean this shit up and let's do this and get it going.
I can tell. Firm and consistent.
Firm. But, you know, the other thing is we beat ourselves up a lot because we are comparing ourselves to the ideal. So there's also the constant questioning. Am I doing the right thing? Am I making too many mistakes? Am I good enough to do this? Does my children love me? Will I be the one that gets the shout out? There's a lot of contrasting definitions that come with the word mother. And I think that's just because the reality of living out the understanding of mother and the ideal of mother can sometimes be in conflict.
Wow. Okay, ladies. Wow. Ms. LaTienda.
Well, for me, when analyzing the definition of what a mother is, I have to look at it from a generational standpoint, because with the generations coming along now, the whole ideal of what being a mother is evolving and it's changing. I'm a millennial. And so what I'm finding among a lot of my friends is that motherhood is being put off into the 30s. And I have some of my friends who have just become in their 40s and so forth. And so when I step back and analyze from the generation standpoint of what it means to be a mother in today's age, I see it as being a nurturer and a caregiver, but I look at it from any living, developing creature, you know, and that includes humans as well as fur babies. Because before I became a mother to a human being, I was a mother to a puppy dog, that I had to be the same level of responsibilities that I see now transition to my child was carried out with my puppy dog. In addition to that, when I was a dare officer, I had hundreds of kids, couldn't claim none of them on my taxes, but I loved them all like they were my own. And so it's the whole entire concept of that nurturing and that caregiver side coming out, but it's extended to any living creature. You know, that's what a mother starts to be, especially in this day and age. You know, it's evolving, changing.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, listen, this is exactly what I hoped for. And why am I saying that? Simply put, being a male, as you know, and as we get into our conversation even further, men, whether other men want to admit it or not, many times we take for granted motherhood, and we make many times all kind of ignorant statements about women with and or without children. And I wanted us to be able to share conversations, hearing from the mothers. As we know, politically, everything, especially in the United States, you always have basically men, and I'll call them less melanated, white men always trying to make decisions for women, and they don't even know who they are. So I'll be honest with you, when I ask those questions, a lot of times I ask them for clarity. I ask them because I want voices to be heard from the women, and I mean that sincerely. So if I can transition to our next question here, you know, if you can share with us and what has been one of your happiest times as a mom and what is one of your scariest times. Now, I know there may be a multitude, but feel free to share as many as you like, or just one of each.
Well,
happiest time, scariest time. Okay, LaTienda.
All right. For me, the happiest and the scariest time for me has been the birth of my child.
In one.
It was scariest, all roll into one. Because prior to conceiving Michelle, I was having difficulties. I was one of those who had miscarriages and all kind of issues. And so when I finally was able to carry this child, I found myself for the whole 9 months basically living the safest I could to make sure that I would get to the end. And then going in 17 hours of labor. And when she came here, I was so excited. But then I looked down at that beautiful bundle of joy and I was like, oh my God, this is it. You are responsible for this living being for the rest of your life. You know, it don't end when you're 18 because they will still call you in your 30s. And when they're in their 30s and 40s, I do it. I know it. Okay, mama, mama, mama. And so this is it. You are riding with this person the rest of their life and the rest of your life. And so that was a scary moment for me because I was like, am I up for this? Can I really do this? You know, and I struck out of it and went on, but it was happy. And then it went scary that night when I was just holding her for the first time and starting that process of learning her and so forth. And so that will always be, I don't think anything else is going to top that moment in time as scary and happiness.
Yeah.
Wow, LA. Yeah. Thank you. Wow, LA.
I would agree. That was definitely a happy and a scary moment, but I think it was more scary for me than happy.
Okay.
Yeah. But there were also other moments where I think about seeing this little person and wondering what they're going to sound like. So waiting for their first words. And then the scariest part is, when are they going to shut up? Yeah, they talk so you know, their first walk, their, you know, plays and concerts or sporting events. When you see their little the little people that you've created and they do kind things, or you see the spiritual aspect of what you were trying to pour into them manifest itself in the way that they are with people. And the scary part, the contrast of that is the parts where you're angry and the parts that you don't like about yourself, and it's being thrown right back at you. Right. Children have a way of not allowing you to escape from the things that you want to change about yourself. So those are sometimes pretty scary moments.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Miss Shannon.
I don't have anything.
Mentor.
Well, yes.
I was gonna say the scariest moment for me was watching all of those live birth shows on TLC. Oh, no, thank you. Bless all of y'all. Your endeavor. in your endeavor, especially after I saw one too many people getting snip so the baby could come out. I was like, oh.
Excuse me.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Okay.
But I love everything about babies until about the time they start talking, and I'm like, oh, be quiet.
See? I'm telling you, when they start talking, it's just as scary.
It is.
It's like
no filter whatsoever.
None.
Everything. They repeat everything.
Yes.
And it's not how it was when I was younger and it was like, oh, this is so cute. Now it's like, what did you just say? What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Where did you learn
that from?
Goodness. Oh, was it me?
It's so true. It's like, I didn't teach you that. Where did you learn that from?
I ask people, kids all the time, you didn't get that from me? I had a kid, and this was not a child of infancy, but I had a kid, I guess you could say I was his mentor in terms of life lessons. We went to the same church. I used to be a part of the greeters committee in the nursery. And every time he'd get in trouble, his mom and dad would be like, I'm gonna tell Miss Shannon. And so I was like, don't tell me, because you know my rule. You get smart with your mom and daddy like that again, I'm punching your throat.
Okay.
And she said, punch your throat.
Look, in church. And so when I came back to visit one time, he was like, I'm doing good in school, Miss Shannon, because I sure don't want you to punch me in my throat. And I was like, oh my goodness. At least you know. See?
Yeah, it's still fear in them.
Listen, honey,
Yeah.
he just graduated. So, yeah.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Well, listen, ladies. Well, you know, and please feel free, just as you're doing, to share what you're sharing. But it's a perfect segue into the next question here. And I know there are many, but will you share with us about some unspoken challenges of motherhood? I mean, you know, everybody tries to give you advice, and somehow, I guess, in life, there are always these unspoken challenges. But if you will, if you'll maybe pinpoint some unspoken challenges, okay, Shannon.
I would,
Go right ahead, Shannon.
I wouldn't even say they're unspoken. They're just not good. Look, because sometimes challenges are implied, and sometimes people don't have filters. And I think in is it LaTienda?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I don't say it wrong. She alluded to this earlier, and I've had a run-in with this in my earlier 20s, even though I'm only 21, so it wasn't too early. I'm just kidding. I'm not 21. But mentioned, and this is probably the biggest debate for women who are career-oriented and want to pursue motherhood, the big debate about you not having worth if you don't have children, or you can't do both. If you do.
Right.
And I think that's a big challenge. Of course, I don't have both, so I am being presumptuous, but I know enough women to go ahead and take a poll and the toll that it takes on people who choose to be both mothers and bosses at work in their life. And on top of that, every other hat that they wear. Wife, sister, they might be on the motherboard at church or in the community garden center. And the thing is if you don't do the motherhood well, they're questioning, well, why do you do this? And why do you do that? And why do you do this? As if you can't find balance in the art of all of those things.
Right.
You know, there's a such thing as priority, and everybody's priorities look different. But you can't shame someone for how they choose to live their life, because the sanity of themselves should always come first, because then that means that can flow into the sanity of their children or whatever else that they're doing if they don't have to.
Shannon understands.
Oh, go ahead.
No, she really understands. There is a lot of conflicting roles when it comes to motherhood. And this is what feeds into those contrasts where you feel like there's an ideal that you're supposed to live up to, but the reality of those situations, especially when you do serve so many different people in your life, something's going to suffer. And of course, you can pride yourself on being a good mother, but you feel the heat and the judgment of other people, even if it's just made up in your own mind. You feel that pressure to perform and to be all that you can be for these children. So I definitely can relate to that. Simple things like I had complications and I could only breastfeed for maybe like 4 to 5 months with my oldest son. And man, the judgment around that was just crazy. And it's like, well, I'm not physically capable of doing it, but they still felt like, you know, if they were me, they would find a way to be able to do these things, and less because I didn't do what they would have done. But if they were in my situation, they probably couldn't even last the 5 months because the guilt of getting to the 5 months was killing me in the first place.
Exactly. That you lasted longer than me because it was 2 weeks and I was done. She was too beautiful.
We have 1 year of maternity leave in Toronto, in Canada, so I gave you a little more time.
No, and I agree 100% with the level of contradiction that we face when we enter into being mothers of any type, because Karen White once sung the song, "I'm Not Your Superwoman." Everybody wants you to put that cape on. And one of the biggest challenges that I have dealt with is, just as you are quick to get the praise, you're also quick to be the blame. That was a humbling reality when I was a correction officer out at the jail, and I saw all the mothers who would be coming to see their sons and daughters who were locked up. And you could tell as they walked out from the visits, they had the weight of not only themselves, but they had the weight of their child on their shoulders. And these are full-grown adults, and unfortunately, society has built a side of to motherhood where we shoulder the blame more so for everything. Even when we talk about these different laws that are passed and everything, it's all still centering on the woman, the mother. The punishment is to the mother. The fault is to the mother. It's, if your child is acting up at school, somewhere in the rear end, you messed it up, or anything like that. And you have done all that you could, and still having to swallow that high level of ability to get blamed. It's a challenge. It is a challenge, because you never said you were gonna birth the perfect child. You just went in to do the best you can, and resources and economics really does impact your ability to be able to raise children the way that society wants them to be, because it's sometimes hard for people to get the correlation that poverty can change the direction of how well a child will grow up to be. I literally have had to tell people, there are some kids that they were born without a chance. They literally came in the world. Unfortunately, it wasn't against them. It was things that was happening to the mother that came from other folks, and it trickled into the child and so that's the challenge that we oftentimes face, the unseen challenges that we're gonna shoulder way too much blame, and we got to put the cape on and be everybody's hero, but we are the villains when it all goes south. So.
Sure are.
And we gotta be okay with taking that cape off, though. I mean, I would say that S on your chest is not super, it's stress. It will kill you. So you better take that cape off.
100%. Listen, can I give you some real small practical examples? I have 2 boys. I am obviously a woman. When I bring my children to the movie theaters and these people want to go to the bathroom, they get to a certain age where they're not trying to go into the women's washroom anymore. They are aware of what that is. This is pure drama for me, because I'm fighting with this kid, hoping that he won't pee his pants because he doesn't want to go into the women's washroom. And then I got to yell into the men's washroom to find out, is anybody in there? Because he wants to be independent. So that's just a little thing. Put the change tables in a lot of these restrooms. So that becomes a big stress. It's a big challenge to figure out, how the hell am I going to change this child? I don't want to put on top of the toilet seat. These are little challenges that people aren't thinking about.
In a perfect world, LA, they would have family restrooms in every establishment.
You're right, Shannon.
Because you don't want to take that chance, especially in the culture we live in and the climate we live in.
Right.
You don't send your kid into the bathroom, because even if you say, is anybody in there, somebody will respond to you and still.
Right. Exactly.
Mind you, I was the auntie that would march in the man's bathroom and be like, trust me, bro, you ain't got nothing I ain't never seen before. Exactly. Don't need to be entertained by anything you got. So I'm making sure that he is in here well behaved and well minded. So if you got a problem in here, go outside.
That's very real. And then on the flip side to that, I would also add that not all women who become mothers, envision that for themselves in the beginning. So there was a big time for me where I became a mom, and it was kind of like, what is this? I don't want to do this. I didn't actually want to be a mother at first.
Yeah.
And I would say that, that they're obviously they're cute and they're adorable and all these great things, but I would say that I actually fell in love with myself as a mother when my first son was 7 years old. 7.
Right.
That's a long time. So that's an unspoken challenge because of the shame and the guilt that coincides with those things. For 7 years, I had to, in a sense, pretend to be the ideal when inside I felt completely different.
Yeah, and that's human nature. That is human nature. I think every woman who's been a mother at one point said, "I really don't want to do this no more."
Yeah,
we camouflage it because we don't want nobody to label us a bad mother because But when it's 1 o'clock in the morning and my child is screaming her head off and she done used it and on me and done did everything like that, I have had that moment where I don't even know if I want to do this no more.
Exactly. Wow. Do you remember getting discharged from the hospital when you first had them? And you're like, wait a second, what do you mean I gotta go home and take care of this person by myself?
And what? All the what?
Yeah, who's coming with me?
Exactly.
How's the child gonna get fed? Don't put it on me.
Wow. Well, ladies, listen. Wow, this is great. This is made for TV stuff. I need to get to call the movie guys out. This is made for TV. With what everybody is saying about the cape and being the superwoman and all of that, you guys just, you make it so easy for me to ask these questions because the very thing that we're going to talk about now, and I think only LA has, I think you have an 18-year-old and a 7-year-old. And, all of the talk out there, and especially come from us as men. I mean, let me just admit it. I am 100% full-blooded man. So let me just admit that if you can't tell. And, it's always, women can't raise men. They can't raise boys, et cetera, et cetera. However, many times we are absent in the process. So with that stated, and as I said, I know that Shannon and I didn't say this, but I know LaTienda, I know the kind of work that you and Shannon both do, and I know you've dealt with men, with boys forever, and I know that LA has already shared with us that you have sons. So please, and I know neither one of you will hold back. How do you feel about constantly hearing people talking about women cannot raise men or boys?
You want me to go first? I could definitely share that I don't think I can. So let me just put that out there, that I don't think I can by myself. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important that we, at least this is what I've done, is that I've put in place male role models for my sons to have around them in conjunction with my love and support. I can maybe teach them how to be, I could suggest the kind of men that I would like to see in the world and then hope that I'm nurturing that in them. But it's more important for it to be modeled by someone in their life that they can depend on, that is consistent, that reinforces what I say as a mother, that can help them understand why it's sometimes hard for a mother to do what she does. So it's not like they're my partners, but I look to Black men that are my friends to step up and be mentors and allies to my children so that they get a good mirror for them to understand how they can be men as they grow older.
Absolutely. Right. I'll give a story. I mean, I don't have children, but I was advocating on behalf of a male child. This would have been 2012. I believe, and I was in Omaha, Nebraska, home of my birth. And I was sitting in the courtroom as a family member, and on behalf of my nephew, who's a twin, and they just graduated from school as well. And the judge was asking everyone's opinion about what to do with this child. And long story short, he had set my mother's garage on fire, thinking that if he did that, he'd be able to go back home with his mom. He didn't burn the garage down, but he did burn up half of my stuff. And so,
no.
I'm over that now. However, as I was listening to a courtroom full of women talk about this young male, and the judge knew me because my previous life, I was a casework manager and I had cases with her. And so she was like, well, let me ask his honor question. And I said, well, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I said, and I've done this line of work now for 10 and a half years at that time. And so this isn't new to me. I said, but if y'all all take a moment and pause and look at this system that we've created in the world and look at this child, he does not identify with anyone. He doesn't identify with the judge, his guardian ad litem, his lawyer, the prosecutor. He doesn't, the bailiff, like no one in the room was a woman, was a man. So you're going to offer him all these services, which are fine. I said, but who does he identify with?
Right.
I was like, because there is no one who looks like him, acts like him, thinks like him, can model him in adult form, so he can at least mimic that. And so I do believe that women have an ability to nurture beautiful, successful, law-abiding human beings in any platform in society. However, caveat, I do not believe that women alone can rear young male children into successful men without the adaptation of other models of successful men.
Right.
You know, because they're going to be, they can mirror what they heard, but it would look so much better if they saw it.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
Right. And I 100% agree with both ladies on this, because the reality is there are just going to be some things that male, as he's growing up, that I would not be able to show him simply because I don't have this certain type of anatomy, or I don't have certain type of mindset of thinking that might help him in that moment in time. One of the things that I always say is that it is important that I know a lot of single mothers whose sons grew up to be great men. But one thing I found that they all had in common is even if the dad was not in the picture, they still put dad figures in the picture. Whether it was grandfather, uncles, cousins, brothers, somebody stepped up and made sure that they covered that male presence. So when those moments came where she, as that female could not understand why that male is acting that way or doing that way, she had somebody to reach out to. I caution women against getting to a point where you cut your son off, or your male, the son in your life, cut him off from any male interaction. I caution very against that because it's an identification thing. It is. We are going to, at some point in time, navigate towards those who have more commonalities with us. And so, you got to be careful about getting into a mode where I'm just going to purposely cut them off from any male influence. Because that's where the damage can usually end up, or put them in a situation where they only see you as the dependent nature, and not that I can turn to other people as guidance.
Right.
Okay, ladies. Wow. I agree with everything you're saying. I tell people all the time. I tell people all of the time, I love Bernice dearly. However, it was my grandfather, my uncles, etc. Although my dad, unfortunately, he's passed on now, but he wasn't responsible as he should have. And I have to say this: a lot of people confuse that. Even, and this is not about my book. I have a book called Moses and Dale Smith, and I put the topic in there about that as well. But people think that it's because there's a deadbeat dad or something of that nature. My dad was a professional man, very responsible. He was a civil engineer, but sucked as a dad. So let me just be honest. But my uncles, my uncles, my grandfathers, and that kind of thing. So it does make a difference. I think, in working with young men, all of the time, and people don't want to address that. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to skip right over number 5, talking about who's the better parenting. Let's go to number 6. I think number 6 is more appropriate here, because I want to talk about that as being a former athlete myself. I don't care what happens, what venue you have, 99% of the time, when the camera hits the young man, he's going to say, "Hi, Mom." Do you think Mom has earned that special recognition as opposed to him saying, "Hi, Dad"? Do you think he's slighting Dad?
No.
Well, I'm going to go in on this one first, if ladies, if you don't mind. It's one of those things, as a former cheerleader, okay, nobody is a more strong cheerleader than Mom. Okay. And when we talk about sports, we know that the cheerleader really gives that spirit, that energy that is needed. And so it becomes one of those things that it becomes a part of that. I'm gonna go to the first person. Doesn't mean dad, because plenty of athletes who got their dads in the picture, and they give honor to their dad, like Steph Curry. It's a prime example of what I look like. Steph Curry mother, is that energy, that fire and everything. And his dad is a great, great role in his life. But it's one of those things that it's that cheerleading mode that Mom goes into, where she will go in the paint. She'll go in the trenches, just, that's my baby. It's one of those things that, of course, in the mind, they go in order by who is that cheerleader, that support, that person who sacrificed the most, and then take it from there and thank everybody else. So it's no slight to dad, but you got to admit, Mom's been a better cheerleader.
All the uniforms, she ironed all the uniforms. She made the stamps. She made sure the Gatorades and vitamin waters and whatever else he needed was packed for the trips. Yeah. It's not a slight on the dad. Yeah. But I would advise you to honor your mama.
It is difficult.
It says honor them both, but there is nothing wrong with paying homage to your mama for all the filthy, grass stain ridden clothes that you done brought home smelling like yesterday's garbage from all of your practices. Like, exactly. She's still loving on you, kissing on you, talking about what you want for dinner. You better I will flip. I'm with LaTienda. I was a cheerleader too, so there is nothing like the support of somebody who's not just rooting for the team, but they believe in you. And that's definitely down for pound, mama.
Yep. For me, it's just when you said that in the question that it was about, did she earn it? I don't know if it's a matter of earning. I just think that because we're so vocal and we're so visible to our children, if we're in the home, if both parents are in the home, we're still more vocal, we're still more visible, we're still more hands-on. Those old belief systems are still in effect. So, the mother being the caregiver and whatnot is embedded into how we actually show up in our children's lives, and they want to make us proud. My children they bend themselves backwards. Even when they drive me crazy, it's all because they want to make me happy. Because they understand that this person gave me the passageway to my life. Yeah. And so in that respect, it's not that it's a slight to the father. It's just kind of, if somebody's more visible for you. I have lots of girlfriends, but if somebody was to ask me who's really there for you, there's just a few that I would talk about because they stand out in my life because they've proven themselves to be consistently there for me. And I think that both parents can be there, but because of the way in which women and mothers show up for children, and that includes other mothering, my children will be probably shouting out Auntie Carla because Auntie Carla will go down. So they show up for who's most vocal and most visible and who they can feel safe with. And maybe that is the dad sometimes, but I think on majority it's the mom.
Yeah, and let me just add this also: mothers tend to be the first agent that that these athletes have, because she's been negotiating on his behalf since Little League, through college, signing day and all that, and been watching the fine print, watching the girls, watching any type of temptations that will derail that child's career from taking place. So that mother's been a free agent, okay, not a dime paid to develop talent, you know, and so that's something to think about. Has she earned it? Oh yeah, she never got a paycheck, but she done negotiated him through him or her through the process for a time. So you know, yeah, she earned it.
Very, very true.
Okay, ladies. Hey, you convinced me. I just wanted to know. Now listen, I have to ask this question though. I know we only have one 18-year-old involved here, and I know the other ones are babies and yet to come. However, just thinking of yourself, maybe. However, I'll say maybe, Shannon. However, just thinking about you. How influential do you feel that you as a mom are when it comes to your son, daughter, niece, nephew selecting a mate? Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
To be honest, I don't know how much control I have over that situation. What I do know is that I have stated what I expect from that situation.
Okay.
I know that I expect certain things and that I'm not really interested in meeting the in-betweens. I want to know when you're serious. And the fact that I have not met anybody is a clear indication that maybe I have more control in that situation than I might think that I have.
Yeah.
Because I haven't met anyone that he seems worthy enough to meet me.
There you go.
I have control. Maybe he can do whatever he wants, and I'm sure, and he is. But when it comes to more serious relationships and what's real, I know why I haven't met these girls.
Right.
But
Go mama, go mama, go mama.
It is the truth. Growing up, my dad only met 3 guys. The whole entire time that I've dated and everything, my father has only met 3 guys. 2 of them were prom dates, and the 3rd one was my husband to be. Because of how he set his house. My dad was in the Marine Corps. He did not play. And so he laid that foundation as far as what he expects. Any man that's coming through that door wanting to have his daughter's hand or be next to his daughter is going to meet to his family. And with Michelle, she has a mother who's law enforcement and a father who's military. So she's going to catch the double end of the sword, you know, as far as what we expect in who she brings home and how they should treat her. And we reiterate the treatment part, because dealing with domestic violence incidents, one of the things, unfortunately, with the victims is that if you were to sit down and talk to them, there was some discrepancies and weaknesses in how that they were taught love is supposed to be administered and how treatment of showing love is supposed to be done. And so for her, you know, for my daughter, that's the main thing that will be, you know, drilled into her head. Whoever is coming and calling themselves trying to date you, trying to like you, they will not raise their hand to you. They will not treat you like you're lesser than. They will not ride off of you and think that it's okay. You know, she will have the same talks that I received when I was growing up about what do we expect, because we want her to bring the best, you know.
Yeah.
And I hate to sound selfish, but it's the truth. I want the best for my child.
Okay. Miss Shannon, I can tell you chomping at the bits.
No, I mean, I am a supporter of right relationships across the platforms. So whether it's a child, a girlfriend, like a brother, someone in my, you know, elder group, I want to know what is it that they're doing to minister to your soul. Now, for young people, that might be a little too deep, but I'm going to get deep with you because I don't want no shallow swimmers trying to mess with people who mean something to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I asked those questions. And I was never someone who saw a lot of right relationship growing up. So I've always had this ideal in my head. I know what LA said about ideals and realities, but I think we live in a world where even though people show you their colors, you don't have to paint with them. You can build your own canvas. You can get your own crayons out. You can sharpen your own colored pencils and create your own artwork. And then you have to learn to love it or go create another one. And so I think that's no different in relationship. You have to be willing to not be consumed with what everyone else is doing, especially when it's not right. And do what fits your life, that makes sense in the harmony of your joy and in your peace, and that doesn't disrupt your spirit. So I'm a supporter. I also keep a still back close if I need to, but I'm a supporter of all of that.
Okay, ladies. Listen. Well, heck, I guess actually you've answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You know, I'm an old guy, okay? And there's so much talk about chivalry being dead and what women expect and what women do not expect. And you know, women saying, I don't need a man. I make my own money. I don't need anybody to open the door for me, etc. Now, I preference all of that because I have to ask you ladies, because you ladies have really been bringing this pain. And I have to ask you ladies, again, we're talking about your children. Mm-hmm. Once that young man or that young lady brought this person home, would their lack of chivalry be a deal breaker for you as the parent?
Hell yeah.
Talk to me.
It depends on how you find chivalry. And the reason why I say that is because everybody's life lessons are not the same. Everybody is not taught from the same book of life. And can you impart wisdom in that child? Because you may be their best teacher. And if you give them room to grow and you water well, you can change the avenue of which they sprout from. And so I guess it depends on how, and this is just with my hundreds of influential juvenile detentionees. You have to be open to the concept of, not saying that you aren't protective of your little bear cub, because I would ask you to always be that. But sometimes you are the gift that other person needs, and you've got to open up a door that they've never been through. So depending on how you define chivalry and depending on how rough they are around the edges, because you can teach them without them being together. You can say, let's split this relationship. Y'all can be friends and grow, but let's get some gifts and some understanding in this thing. Because that was done to me. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily think I'm rough around the edges, but I'm rough around the edges. And so, you know, and I was raised with common sense, and I was raised with manners, and I was raised with, you know, a way to act and treat people. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have a mouth and wasn't sassy and didn't tell you what I felt, how I felt it when I felt it. And sometimes people's parents heard that because we thought we was grown and we was doing stuff we weren't supposed to. So yeah, that's my soapbox, my 2 copper coins. But I'm gonna let go. LA refute that because she's not for my babies.
No, they're not. They don't need to understand that. They can be friends with people, but there's no need to understand that. We're not opening the door to a little bit of non-respect in the way that it's been mirrored to them. I want to carry myself a certain way so that they know how to carry themselves a certain way. When you start entertaining things that are not of God or not of how you think you want to be treated in your life, no, you don't make accommodations, because once you start learning how to make accommodations for things like that, and you're right to say you have to define it.
That part.
But, yeah, right. You have to define it. And a great example, I'm glad Boogie is here, is that for the longest time, I would walk down the street with a guy and not think anything of it until I met Boogie, and he would always put me on the inside of the sidewalk.
Yes.
So the car wouldn't, if it jumped the curb, he would take that for me. And that was just kind of like a new concept in terms of chivalry. I saw that as a form of chivalry.
Yes, well, definitely.
He's a young millennial, but he's old school, and he has respect, and he has some broad-upsy. So if I had a daughter, or even if we were to be in a relationship, I would feel like that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in terms of being treated, because I'm being looked out for. And if I saw that from my daughter, if I had one, I would definitely be looking for that. If I saw him not being that way towards my daughter, we could have a conversation, but for me, it's like you want to learn. If you can't learn that after a brief conversation, it's definitely a deal breaker.
Okay.
I mean, that's not what you just said, LA. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you go ahead.
Juxtaposition to what. That's why I said definition was important.
Yeah.
Because I totally wholeheartedly believe you and agree with you about the level of disrespect. I'm not tolerating disrespect.
Right.
But we live in a culture, just looking at the children, and I know you've seen it in Canada, I know you've seen it in Louisiana, and Melvin, I know you've seen it where you are, that everybody doesn't get the same life lesson at home. And unfortunately, people are increasingly becoming latchkey children who are coming home to no parent because their parents at work or their parents out wherever, whatever that looks like. And so they are being taught or not taught chivalry by what they see on TV, what they're playing on a video game, and not saying that it's their fault, because these are little people we're talking about. And so we're trying to grow them up in a way that they should go so that they shouldn't depart from it. But if that's their teacher and they come to our presence, we have a responsibility and a mandate, not necessarily to take them under our wing and mold them until they get to where they need to be, but just to impart that light and that wisdom that you already have flowing from the spirit and the essence of who you are as a person. And I see the responsibility, but if it comes natural to you, which it does, because we see it every day, then you're already going to be emulating what you are to them so that they can either choose to pick it up or question, well, why do you act like that, Miss LA? My mommy doesn't do that. Or, why do you do that, Mr. Melvin? Because my daddy doesn't do that. And then you can start having those deeper questions and conversations, but you're planting seeds in the process. So I'm totally here for it, but now we ain't gonna do no disrespect. I'll whoop somebody's kids and punch them in the throat.
And to just add to that, the whole element of disrespect is we see it now becoming a glamorized thing. You got songs. If you got a song where it's saying these hoes ain't loyal, and everything like that, it puts the younger a person is, and they're exposed to those type of images of that's how you supposed to treat the. And this goes both ways for males and females, because now I see with females a lot more willingness to be to and partake in behavior and that is really unbecoming to a female. You can't expect a guy to treat you a certain way if you're giving off that's not what you respond to. If he pulls out a chair for you and then y'all sit down and you cussing him out in the restaurant, because it starts to, it has to be a balance. And that's one thing with my daughter that I want to make sure she understands. If you want this type of treatment, make sure that you're doing your part to show that, and that's the responsibility of both myself and her father, is to make sure that when she walks out in public, she's a fine-tuned young lady that can attract that aura that, yes, she is not going to accept me coming up to her, acting a certain way, talking a certain way, because a lot of times we can give that essence off. We can give you know, and I think everybody here has been in that situation where they've had people literally, they were acting one way, and then when you walked in the room or when you came in contact with them, they changed up and they straightened up because they know you don't tolerate that. Mm-hmm. They know how you are. And so passing that on to my daughter, I was like, that it's important to teach her to be a certain way and mold herself into a certain way. So when she walk into that room, even if that young man just got through foul mouthing and all this stuff, but for some reason he'll sense her aura and he'll be like, no, I need to straighten up. I don't need to do it like that. Boom, 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 boom. You know, and so that's something that's important that I say pass on is teaching your children how to understand, how to give off that presence that people know. They've got to be in their on their A game when they step to them. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Anyone else like any more comments on that? Because I think we'll end. I think this is a perfect one to end on. Anyone have any?
I believe in the village mentality. I grew up with it. You know, the lady next door to us, rest her soul, she used to watch us when my mom would be at work, and of course me more so than my sister because my sister's older and she was 6 years apart at that time. So she was almost out of high school. But if I got in trouble, Miss Ruby knew about it, and I'm like, in trouble twice. And so, you know, just knowing that people really genuinely cared about you and had your back. You know, she may chastise you or discipline you, but then she go around and cook you a meal and give you some bubble gum, send you home to get a real whooping. We just don't have that culture or that community. And so jokingly, out of love, I say all the time to people's kids, you know, you better straighten up or I'm punching your throat. And most people laugh because they're like, I cannot believe, and I do say some far-fetched things. It is truly in love. I love on the babies. I love them as if they're my own. But you ain't about to disrespect your mama or your daddy. They could be the scum beneath the bottom of your toes, but in my presence, you will honor them and respect them because they gave you life. They brought you into this world. And, you know, goodness gracious, if God ain't the most gracious person on earth, they could do how they wanted to with his permission. So mind your manners.
That's right.
And enjoy the growth and development that comes from people who may not be perfect, but are trying to make life perfect for you as you grow and live this thing called life. Because a lot of times we so in a rush to become these adults. These little people want to grow up so fast and knew what you knew when you knew it. Now, all hindsight, there are days I don't want an adult. I don't want to pay bills. I don't
want to pay bills.
I don't want to pump gas. Like, I would like to go back to when I sat in the backseat of my mother's car, chewing gum, without a care in the world. Now it's like I'm stuck in traffic. I got to pack a lunch for somebody or go to the grocery store for the kids here at the shelter. And it's like, I don't want to do this no more. So y'all just need to slow down. Don't grow up. Enjoy childhood. We have been here a little longer than you. So we're not telling you stuff because we know nothing. Now I sound like my mother. But yeah, I'm definitely a village supporter. And not just the village people, but the village.
I understand.
Yes.
Anyone else before we ask you to share how people may contact you or anything else you want to share before we get to that point?
Well, Melvin, you had a question. I can't remember what the question was, and you didn't ask it, but when you sent it to me, I think it was number 5. And
there were a couple of them that I skipped just to expedite time, but let's deal with it.
Let's think about. Do you have the question there, number 5?
Yes, I do. Yes, actually, what number 5 was asking was, generally speaking, would you say that an overwhelming majority of best parenting practices are done by mothers as opposed to fathers? That was I just skipped over it to expedite time, but I'm good.
Yeah, what it made me think about was I think that really depends on the gender role belief system that you tap into or that you follow through. You know, some men are old school and think, you know, women need to be in the kitchen and do this and do that. that will have a different manifestation of what you're suggesting. However, I feel that now, a lot of men now are much more hands-on. There's less structure involved with how men need or how they show up in a family dynamic. More women are leaving families. I get maybe Dre would be able to speak to that, because I mean it's really admirable to see a man step up and do those kind of things, and it shows that there are differences, but that those differences aren't necessarily negative differences. And depending on the sex of the child, it can actually work to the benefit of those children.
Anyone else like to comment on that? Feel free.
I agree with LA. I think, and I didn't grow up with a man in my home, so I am more inclined to praise, and not that women don't do it, because they do it. So don't be remiss when I say what I say. I praise men, and not because they shouldn't be parents, because they absolutely should. But when I see men, especially when they're loving on their daughters, and they're loving on and raising good men, children, it is not only admirable and honorable, but it is something that goes sometimes unsaid and unnoticed. And so I think everyone has a role to play, and I'm not speaking of gender roles or traditional roles or, present roles. I'm talking about just a role as a person to engage another human being. And LaTienda mentioned this earlier when we were talking about mothers and all living things. You have a responsibility when you have been filled to pour into other people.
That's right.
And so what that looks like as an individual is different for everyone. And so sometimes there are men who have more feminine qualities and women who have more masculine qualities, and those that are, social construct that are gender specific, and they stay within their compounds and constraints. But at the end of the day, are you teaching them how to be sound mind and use good judgment and rational problem solving skills and critical thinking skills and effective communication and active listening, and not to be angered when they're disappointed, because there are differences between being disappointed and being angry. And there's also an okayness to being angry, as long as you are not using violence to correspond with that anger. And so I think when you put that into practice, regardless whether you're a male parent or a female parent, whether you're a man or a woman, or however you may identify, it is what are you teaching this little human to do and be, so that when they evolve into their adulthood, what are they then pouring into someone else? Because that's the true domino effect of humanity. If you are not doing that, because we all pour something, whether it's good or bad, and if you are not pouring from the goodness of your heart, from the wellspring of your being, and making a change that is effective, you are disruptive to humanity. And so I pay honor, and I definitely praise those that do it, and do it with the idea of, I'm leaving a legacy now and not just after I die, so people can either praise me or talk bad about me. Like, you need to do it now.
Okay. LaTienda, did you want to share any nuggets before we go home for this evening?
All I just want to say is what I'm learning every day with having a child is that children, and even before I had a child, being involved with so many kids through the different programs, is that children will teach you and they'll test you. They will and they will test you. And so I always remember that for those who are just now entering parenthood, for those who've been going through parenthood, and for those that it's just about to come. Just keep in mind that you're not always going to be teaching your kids. They're going to teach you a lot about yourself during growing up. I find myself now asking the question, did I do that when I was her age? And it is true what they say. You spend the next 18 years or the rest of your life yelling at something that is you all over again. And so they will teach you and test you, and you just got to be ready for it, So that's what I have.
Okay. Okay, ladies, listen, it's been great having you here. It's a wrap for tonight on the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. And one thing before the three of you tell us how to contact you, Miss LaTienda did not share with you guys that she certainly wears a crown. 2015, she was Mrs. Black U.S. And also Mrs. Black Louisiana. She didn't tell you guys that she wear that crown.
All right.
So, LaTienda, since we're sharing that, maybe you'd like to go first and tell us how we can contact you.
Well, I can be contacted. My actual, because I also have a paparazzi business. I can be contacted through my email is bluecollarblingqueenlt@gmail.com. That's my email. Also, my business number is area code 318-286-8992. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook. You just type in LaTienda Pierre Davis and send me a friend request.
Aww.
That's
okay.
Me? Okay.
Doctor.
Okay, I'm not a doctor yet, Melvin. I'm working on it.
I'm claiming it for you.
I receive. Maybe I should change my handle to Dr. L.A. Wade then.
I mean,
that's right.
But my Twitter handle right now, until that happens, is L.A. Wade. My Instagram is This Is L.A. Wade. And my show is The Elephant Room, and we can be seen on mytcntv.com. And I know I've talked about this, but I will be launching a show that is really personal and a little bit frightening on Get Vocal with just me and maybe some girlfriends that will stop by. But it's called Cocktails, and it's the adventures of a recovering sex addict. And I hope to do them on Mondays after Shannon and Kinte show at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome. Like that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, can the guys listen? I might learn something. Can the guys listen, or is it just open? I mean, I won't comment. I might learn something.
You can definitely comment. It's a conversation. That's
and I certainly we'll talk with you about that later. I don't want to prolong the show with my babble.
Okay.
Mrs. Shannon Ford-Jefferson.
I love that name.
Yes, I do too. Shout outs to my papa. You can catch me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under my name, Shannon Ford, like the president, -Jefferson, like the president. I am only one of my kind, so if you search me, you will find me. Same thing for my books. They're on Amazon. I am a poet, published author. I have 5 books on Amazon, all under my name, Shannon Ford-Jefferson. Currently working on my 6th book, Dismantling Daddy Dysfunctions and All the Men I Loved After Him. I am also co-host on the Mars and Venus Men and Women Talk Show with Kinte Ferguson, who was in the room earlier. And I also have branched out on my own. And I do a show on Sunday. That one's on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also do my own show on Sunday nights, A Set Apart Woman, created by a woman for women and the men who love them. And that is at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can catch me wherever you catch me. Bring the tacos just in person.
Bring your tacos. Dynamite group of ladies. Listen, guys, as you know, this is the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. It's very easy to find me on my website at www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Once you get to that website, you will find all of my social media outlets, LinkedIn, Instagram, the whole 9. So just save yourself some headache. Go to www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Now, listen, I do want to say this. Once you get there, you got to get this book, Mothers and Their Men, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons. This book is the only one like this in the country. Why is it the only one like this in the country? Because no one has done actual research, surveyed over 500 moms that were, quote, less melanated. You know, I don't call white people white. I call them less melanated. Latino moms, Asian moms, Black moms, and moms in between. We wanted to get the perspective of women, not just men babbling and talking about what we think we know. So listen, please get that book. We want you to come back again to the Nobody Asked Me Guys show. As you guys know, this entire month was dedicated to moms. Next month is dedicated to dads. Now, those of you that are Lean On Me fans, I have an original for you, Dr. George McKenna. I've talked about him forever. Denzel Washington played the part of Dr. McKenna. He's not only a personal friend, but he's my former boss. Then we have coming with us as well a couple of other gentlemen. I've already said to Dre is that he's definitely going to have to be on the show. So I'm putting him on the spot. I'm going to send him a formal invitation, but we're going to definitely have to have Dre next month as well. Listen, and for those of you that wonder why we never talk to bishops and all of those guys, guess what? Next Friday, we are going to have Elder Griffin of the CME Church. He's over about 150 churches, and we're going to be talking about churches and the purpose of them and what they do, etc. Then we're going to have some bishops on here. So we like to have a very exciting show, and I do want to say to our listening audience, because you will see this again on Facebook, you will see it again on YouTube. These ladies are phenomenal. You need to go to their sites. You need to follow them. You need to make sure you subscribe to their YouTube pages, tell your friends about them, and you become a fan of these beautiful, gracious, wonderful young ladies. Again, ladies, I thank you so very much for being here. And I have to talk to you individually sometimes in a group and tell you about my opinions, because I really agree with all of the things that you ladies are sharing. I think, unfortunately, men do a very poor job. Too many of us do a very poor job of honoring you, our ladies, our women, our equals, etc. Unfortunately, we do a very poor job of that. Hopefully, I do not. Matter of fact, I always teach my son. He's always talking about the kind of woman he wants. My first question to him always is, son, what do you bring to the table? And he can quote that in his sleep. So without further ado, it's been great. We appreciate you ladies being here. And again, we invite you guys to come and watch the Nobody Asked Me Guy every Friday night, 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a great and blessed evening.
Thanks for having us.
Guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost her.